Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, Eva. Glad you're here. Thank you for joining. As we arrive together, let's take a collective breath in and out. And just land here together, right here and now. And we will give a few minutes to give time for people to start joining in. And thank you all for joining. If you're new here, please say hello if you would like. You can give an emoji in the chat if you don't want to speak. And it can be good to... Oh. Can you hear me now? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad I only talked for 1.5 minutes with nobody hearing. This new microphone has issues. So, I'll start over. Welcome. Hi Bev, hi Samantha, hi Eva, hi Nina. Yeah, welcome. Maureen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am excited to be here with you all right now. If you are new here, I recognize some of you and see some new people as well. So if you care to say hello, where you're joining in from, or just give an emoji in the chat to speak your energy into our collective room here, you can do so. Wow. Hi, Cream. Nice to see you. Bev, 3 a.m. What a warrior you are. And you're raising your standards. So the live stream that we're doing today, I'm super excited about. It's called Raise Your Standards and Claim Your Power. And by the end of this session, you are going to have clarity on where you've been settling, where you've been compromising, and a clear path and steps to take on doing the opposite of that and being in your power, raising your standards, and tuning into and following your North Star. So, hi Nancy, how does that sound to everybody? If you are new to me, please don't forget to give me a follow. You can click this link on the screen if you would like. If you are new to me, I'm Natalie, spiritual life coach and Reiki master teacher living in Mexico. You can check out my profile here and find out more about me there. And there's links to where you can find me everywhere. So please support me everywhere I am. It's helpful if you feel called. I appreciate it. Yeah, and this is double live streaming right now. So in replays I have available on on another platform, you can send a message if you'd like that information. And just great to be here with you all. So I want to just get, as we begin, one word in the chat from everybody who cares to, or an emoji of what's alive in you right now. So it could be something you're thinking about, something you're feeling, but go ahead and share that, and an emoji might express it, or a word or two. What is alive in you right now? Wait, I saw somebody else. Talia, welcome. Rochelle. Amazing. Nancy's power coming alive. Eva's professional freedom. Welcome, Butterfly Rain. Good evening. Boundary setting and holding. Wonderful. So you may want to join. I have some future live streams this week and next. The hidden power of carrying everyone else's expectations may resonate with some of you who feel you need to set boundaries. And I have another, I'll share that one here in the pop-up as well. So if you want to RSVP on that, I have another one as well, but I can't quite remember the name off the top of my head. So, but that one's coming up a little bit later on. So yeah. So we don't rise to the level of our goals. We rise to the level of our standards. So I want you to just think about that for a minute. We don't rise to the level of our goals. We rise to the level of our standards. So we're going to look at, as I said, where we've been settling and what happens when we raise our standards for ourselves. And that could be in love, energy, health, life, work, anything, habits. So this is where your power begins. So I'm going to ask you all a question, and you can ponder this, you can journal about it, you can type your answer in the chat. And I may ask this more than once because this shows where we're settling. So the question is, what have you been tolerating? What have you been tolerating? Think of an area in your life where you've been tolerating something that doesn't really align with who you know you could be. Welcome, Flora. Angela, welcome. Ooh, Bev, disrespect. I imagine that might sting. I know if I were thinking, what am I tolerating? And then I noticed that I'd been tolerating disrespect from somebody, that would be an aha moment. So thank you for sharing that. Hi, Tracy. Bev, Tracy also feels the same. So it's good to notice and get clear on. And then, think about what would raising your standards look like so that you no longer tolerated disrespect. And how are you disrespecting yourself by tolerating disrespect from others? Teresa also agreeing. Welcome, Teresa. Melinda, welcome. Flora's been tolerating thoughts that focus on health issues that lead to hesitating making plans. That sounds very heady is the word that comes to mind. A lot of energy and thinking. Hey, Laura. Cream's been tolerating half glass empty people. So what I'm hearing so far is a lot about people in your world that you've been tolerating. So, you know, the good news is that there's actions we can take to shift that. And what would it look like to raise your standards of what behavior you allow from others? Yeah. Bev said, I think, recovering people pleaser. Yeah, so when we shut ourselves down to keep the peace may be kept outside, but we sacrifice inner peace. Let that sink in. When we hold ourselves back to keep the peace, we lose inner peace. I can relate too. Nancy tolerating other people's struggles and tolerating poor behavior. Yeah, totally get that. So I have a coaching client who was tolerating subpar service from a practitioner that they worked with for a year or two. And, you know, we'd talk about it in coaching sessions. They would bring it up. They would, you know, talk about what wasn't working, talk about how the dynamic affected the service she was receiving. And yet she kept making excuses to stay and to not end the relationship. And this went on for a year or two, probably 2 years. And then finally, you know, some things happened, and it was like this person made a decision. It was like this internal decision that they made that was just like, I'm not tolerating this anymore. And she ended the relationship and terminated the services of that practitioner. So, in effect, she raised her standards to where now she is working with, you know, doing other things, working with somebody else where it's on a higher level of quality of service. So if you all, like many of you, are talking about relationships, right? So wherever you're bleeding out energy into these relationships, like that's holding space where if you either cleaned it up by communicating, by setting boundaries, or by ending the connection, it's going to be different for everybody. That's going to free up new energy and space for new things to happen and come into your life. But if you have these draining, we'll just say draining relationships that you're tolerating, and you're bleeding this out, this energy out, or maybe it's energy vampires, you're allowing them to drain you. All of that is a placeholder where if you cleaned it up or got rid of it, there would be new energy and new space for new opportunities, new connections, new relationships to come in. So your standards set the floor of your life. So most of you are talking about, tolerating disrespect, bad behavior, needing to set boundaries, staying quiet, to people please and not make waves, to keep the peace. So if that's your standard, then everything is going to kind of land there. So when you raise your standard, everything rises. So we're going to have some questions here that, again, you can journal, you can text in the chat, you can ponder. Where in your life are you settling for less than you truly desire? Where in your life are you settling for less than you truly desire? Melinda, that sounds very draining. So glad you're through that. And Angela mentioned your sisters tolerating their bad behavior and then feeling stressed when they reach out. I can relate. Nancy said they are settling for less in their finances. Who else can relate to that? So the next question is, what have you been tolerating that drains your power? What have you been tolerating that drains your power? And everything that's been said so far are great examples. So give an emoji, give a word in the chat. Awesome. Maybe it's somebody walking all over you. Maybe it's a boss that doesn't have boundaries. Maybe it's you buying into your bullshit in your mind, in the stories. Maybe you're believing, oh, I could never do that. I'm not good enough. I'm a klutz. I'm always late. All of these sorts of beliefs. Procrastination, Rochelle, perfect. That's a great one. Oh, so Angela, the therapist you had trouble speaking up to and gave them too much power. Interesting. So are you still in that relationship? Okay, great. So you claimed your power by ending the relationship. Yeah, it sounds like it. If I would say if anyone's in a therapist or even coaching with somebody and you feel like you have trouble speaking up, that's definitely something to look at. So glad you got out of that. So for those of you that are illuminating and seeing these places where your standards, where you're tolerating things, your standards are a bit lower, what story do you tell that keeps you in that lower standard? What story are you telling? So remember the client example I gave you when they were working with this practitioner for a few years. You know, the story that they told is, oh, but they are helping me, you know, they do help me with this, and this is helpful, and they helped me through a bad time. They were really helpful in this bad time. So I can't leave them because, you know, it would be almost like a loyalty because they helped them through something 2 years before. So the story they were telling, well, I can't let go, like I have to keep holding on. Peacekeeping. Yes. I have to keep the peace. I can't say anything. It's too hard. They never listen. It's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. It's not worth the conflict. Angela, in what you said about the therapist knowing more, and you said maybe I frustrated her because I was too much. So right there, like there's a little glimmer into perhaps a limiting belief. I'm too much for people. Nancy. So is it your literal job to help fix situations for people or help fix people? And there it feels like there's a loyalty. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Angela. Worried that your sister would take their life if you left. You know, for things like that, what comes to mind for me is Al-Anon or CODA, Codependence Anonymous, for those sorts of situations. Or maybe even adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. Melinda story was this person had no other option and you had to help. Yeah, that definitely is a story that kept you in that situation until it didn't. And Nancy, your child. So that adds another layer. So we all have places like this in our life. Nobody is immune to it. This is just about the noticing, right? So it's not about shaming or making ourselves wrong. It's just about noticing. So our goals are our wishes, And our standards are our non-negotiables. So yeah, think about that for a minute. Goals are wishes and standards are non-negotiables. What non-negotiables do you already have in your life? You know, for me, I think one is like, especially with family, that if they are under the influence of alcohol or drugs, I'm not going to converse with them. That's like a non-negotiable. Another non-negotiable for me is doing my morning practice. My meditation, my breath work. Another non-negotiable is not picking up alcohol or drugs or sugar one day at a time. So an example of a goal could be like, I want to be healthier, and a standard could be, I move my body 5 times a week, period. So when we raise our standards, it changes our identity and it changes our personality. And then we become the person who is XYZ or does XYZ. You know, I've been meditating every day for over 10 years now. But before that, you know, I wasn't a meditator. I wasn't somebody who meditated every day. So I had to raise my standards to become the person who that was a value. So this isn't about perfection. It's not about punishment. It's about aligning with your values and who you want to be. Because perfectionism can be one of those areas that some of us are tolerating, that it's not helpful. Totally. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, and even today, I did 5 minutes, Cream. Seriously. So I do Wim Hof breath work every morning, and that's a newer daily. I've done it off and on for years, but I've been doing it daily for probably 8 months. And then I do my meditation, and then I take a cold shower. And today I did my breath work, and then I did my shower. And I knew it's like, I'm not going to want to meditate after I do my shower. I'm going to want to get started with my day. And I said, no, at least 5 minutes. If only 5 minutes, I did 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you a practice, again, however you want to interface with these practices. So if it's writing on paper, taking notes digitally, writing in the chat, just reflecting in your mind. And reflecting in your mind is going to be the most abstract thing. It's not necessarily going to stick as well as some of the others. And, you know, no right or wrong here. And there'll be more value if you actually get it out somewhere. Awesome, butterfly rain. So even this is raising your standards, and having it be like a non-negotiable. If it's a value for you, if spirituality or inner peace, if those things are core values. So I want you to bring to mind an area that where you've been settling. And it could be work, finances, relationships. There's been a lot of you identifying with relationships, habits. Could be outer habits or thinking habits, thought patterns in your mind. So first you want to write down the old standard, and you would start that with I'm tolerating, or I tolerate XYZ. I tolerate, letting my mother call me at 3 a.m. drunk and I answer the phone and listen to her talk. And then she doesn't remember the next day that she even called. Just as an example. I tolerate staying up too late. I tolerate scrolling on social media. I had a coaching client who would set timers on his phone for like Facebook and things. And he would do okay for a while, and then he would, just cancel the timer and keep scrolling, right? So that would be something, that he was tolerating. So you could say, I tolerate or I allow. I allow my son to steal money out of my purse and I don't punish him. Ooh, Cream tolerates stress eating sugar. If you've followed me enough, you've heard me talk about my sugar-free journey, being 5 years sugar-free. So I used to tolerate and allow horrible sugar binges and sugar addiction. So it might be I allow my boss to yell at me. I'm just trying to think of different areas in life. I tolerate working overtime without getting paid. Hello, Jacob. Bev sets an alarm and keeps on watching. I'm sure you're not the only one. So these are all of the old standards, right? So once you have those, I tolerate XYZ, I allow XYZ. It might be I tolerate abuse. I allow my spouse to yell at me or to tear me down. So then you take those and you rewrite it as a new standard. And so you can start these phrases with the words, I require and I commit to. I require and I commit to. It might be, I require 2 10-minute work breaks in addition to my hour lunch break. How many of you have been in a workplace where, like at least in the US by law, you're supposed to get certain breaks, and a lot of times it doesn't happen depending on the work environment. Great, Bev. I commit to more self-discipline. I require more self-discipline. Self-discipline equals self-love. Self-discipline equals self-love, because self-discipline is, I'm trying to find the words, but like investing in your future self, loving your future self. You know, if it's around boundaries with relationships, if it's, you know, somebody, Melinda mentioned about somebody living in their house, and I don't know the details, but it might be, I require $200 of rent per month from this person, or they are leaving. If it's within ourselves, you know, I commit to being sugar-free. I commit to getting the junk out of the house and being sugar-free one day at a time. Which, by the way, if there's anybody here who has issues with sugar, I'm doing a Halloween Without the Sugar Crash live workshop a few days before Halloween. So if anybody's like dreading the holidays coming up as far as the free-for-all with sugar, send me a message. I'll send you the details. It's free. It's live. So what were you tolerating and allowing, and now what are you requiring and committing to? This is you rewriting a new standard. I commit to getting up at 6:30 every morning and doing Wim Hof breathing. I commit to sending in 5 job applications per day over the next week. Totally, Bev. So this is all a process, not an event. It's a process, not an event. Transformation and change is a process. And what it takes is that first step. And then the next one and the next one. And sometimes there might be a regression. You know, sometimes you might hold your tongue to keep the peace. It's not like the first time you do it, from then on out, you're going to be 100% not people-pleasing anymore. But it's that first time you speak up when you're scared. And then you do it again, and then maybe you don't do it, and then you do it. Like, that's the journey. Great. Yeah, so Angela raised their standards. They tolerated their brother's racism. Now Angela is committed to speaking up when she hears it. It's a great example. Yeah, totally, butterfly rain. And then where do we put up with our own crap too much in our heads? So that's where we can really raise our standards. So when we do this, we're honoring our worth and our value. And as I said, it shifts our identity. I am somebody who no longer stays quiet when my brother says racist things. I am someone who always speaks what I want to say, even if I'm afraid somebody won't like it. Yeah, totally. That's a great one, Jacob. I know others can relate, and I can too. Fearing commitment when I don't believe in myself following through. And that's the work I do in my coaching. I think 2 clients today, even, this came up. And this is, what we do in coaching is setting these like baby step goals. I'll meditate for 5 minutes a day for the next week. And what happens is we start to build the muscle of self-trust. Because what happens, we make promises to ourselves in our mind that nobody knows about but us. And then when we break those promises, nobody knows, nobody cares because nobody knows except us. But that erodes our self-esteem, our self-worth, and our self-trust. And then it becomes so easy. We just break our word to ourselves over and over again. So that's very internally damaging and very common. So that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. So I'm someone who no longer breaks my word to myself. I am someone who always follows through on my commitments to myself. And then you follow through on that. Keeping commitments, keeping our word. And every time you raise one standard, it raises the floor, remember? So everything will shift. So when you stop settling, when you start rising, when you start holding your standards, having standards for yourself, having standards for what you will and won't tolerate from others, that's where you gain your power. And as I said, this is the work I do in my life coaching. So if you've never had a gifted session with me, I have an offer of a visioning session where we're going to look at this stuff of, what's not working in your life, where are you settling, what are you tolerating, and then what do you want to create and what's in the way. And it's very illuminating. It's very powerful to help people shift their mindset, shift their perspective and focus, and really get clear on these things. Because what happens is it's just almost subconscious or unconscious. I think it was a Carl Jung quote. He said, something like, I'm going to butcher it, but until the unconscious becomes conscious, we just call it fate. Because we're just driven by these unconscious and subconscious programs, beliefs, patterns. But then when we wake up from it, then we get to create something different and not just call it fate. Bev will keep your distance. I think that's great. Sometimes, we get to keep our distance from people. Sometimes that might be temporary until we get stronger. Sometimes it might be permanent. Hi, Jay. Great questions. Yeah, totally. You know, we need to be discerning about who we trust and who we confide in, for sure. So, let me know what you're taking away from this session today. And give one word in the chat or an emoji of what you're bringing with you when you leave, that you can experiment with, implement. If you care to give a donation, the donation card is on the screen. This is my livelihood, so I always appreciate the donations, and thank you all for those who have donated. It's appreciated. Thank you, Jacob, and great to see you again. It's been a while. Can't see. Okay. My screen is a little messed up. Hold on. Great. Jacob's feeling hopeful. Butterfly rain. Breathe. In a client session today, we really slowed down and felt into the power of the breath in a stressful situation. And it was really impactful for that person. So definitely a powerful reminder. And it's great to see so many of you new to my community and many returning, many old timers, as we would say in AA. Those of you that have been around for a long time, I so appreciate you. Or even if you've never been and you're just joining or have been a couple times, I'm grateful for all of you. Awesome, Cream. Determination. What an empowering feeling to take with you. Love that for you. Determination implies commitment. Yes, Melinda. And I'm grateful for your continued participation. Thank you, Cream, for the donation as well. I will, and the donate button I think is always on the screen, but I'm going to pop up the next live stream, which is the hidden cost of carrying everyone else's expectations. So many of you talked about themes of relationship stuff today. So I invite you to join in this live stream, because I imagine expectations are part of what you've been tolerating. Awesome, Melinda. Oh, I love that for you, Angela. Yeah, it's so important to give ourselves grace. Really, the most important thing, or top 3. Yes, that never changed. So if you do have Apple and you want to donate and you want to bypass Apple taking a percentage, there's other ways you can donate. You could send me a message. And please, as I said, follow me here. I'll put the card up again. Donation, as you saw. Listen to my meditations. I get wonderful reviews every day from my premium and regular tracks. Join my group, Natalie's Healing Circle, to stay in touch. And yeah. Let's close with a Michael Singer card. I'm just spontaneously getting that. Ooh, interesting. I've never seen this one before. So this is Untethered Soul cards. What if it is really true that God is not judging? What if God is loving? Never seen this one, and I've had these cards almost a year. And this is from the Untethered Soul. So take it or leave it. But yeah, what if? What if? And when I met Michael Singer almost a year ago, when I went to see him and got those cards, and I was crying so hard because I was going through something with family. It was self-created because I had low standards. He said, God wants you more than you want God. And that really landed. Hey, Sister Sunshine. Awesome. Glad to have you. Totally. Well, good night. Good morning, Bev. Thank you all for everyone who joined. I will see you all very soon. You can catch the replays on my YouTube channel. Follow me there. Facebook, Instagram, check my website. I just did step 3 today. I'm in a new 12-step program. So all about relationship with higher power. So really appreciate all of you. Thank you to Insight Timer, to all who are here. And I will see you all very soon. Much love. Bye-bye.